Welcome back, it's Seth here. There's a great article written by Global Mail on the fact that there's a huge rise in new millionaires, and especially in Canada. However, these new millionaires in Canada aren't really feeling that well off. According to the UBS 2025 Global Wealth Report, the number of so-called everyday millionaires, those with wealth between $1 million USD and $5 million USD, has quadrupled globally since 2000, reaching nearly 52 million people. Canada has seen a significant rise in the millionaire population. Currently, Canada has over 2 million millionaires, and this number is expected to increase to 3.3 million by 2027. So, with Canada having 2 million millionaires and more to come by 2027, so how is it that the wealthy don't really feel wealthy at all? From what I see, there are 5 factors that are impacting these new millionaires on giving them the feeling that they are not wealthy. However, before I dive deeper into these factors, please hit the like button down below, and if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to help grow our channel. Now that you hit the like button, let's dive in. So the first factor that's contributing to the new millionaires not being wealthy is that inflation and cost of living have skyrocketed. As we're well aware, inflation and cost of living has just increased substantially in the past few years. Even though Bank of Canada has a goal of keeping inflation between 2 to 3%, they haven't been able to do that in the past few years. And inflation is usually measured by the Consumer Price Index, also known as the CPI. If you're not aware, the CPI represents the change in price that an average Canadian consumer would experience. It measures price change by comparing through time the cost of a fixed basket of goods and services. And this fixed basket of item tends to include food, shelter, household operations, furnishings and equipment, clothing, footwear, transportation, health and personal care, recreational, education and reading, alcoholic beverages, tobacco products, and recreational cannabis. So this basket is supposed to provide an overall picture of what an average Canadian would experience when making these purchases. And well, what happened with the CPI in the past few years? In 2020, the CPI only rose by 0.7%. But then in 2021, it increased by 3.4%. And in 2022, it rose by 6.8%. The increase in 2022 was a 40-year high, the largest increase since 1982. Then the CPI increased by 3.9% in 2023 and then 2.4% in 2024, which is finally within the goal of Bank of Canada. With this vast inflation, we've seen a significant rise in Canadians struggling to put food on their table. And Food Bank Canada reported that over 23% of Canadians were unable to buy sufficient food. And now it's being reported that 40% of Canadians feel financially worse off compared to the previous quarters. Most Canadians are barely keeping up with this rising cost, and this is putting such a significant strain on these Canadian families. I hate to say this, but I do think it will take Canadians some time to adjust to these higher costs. So the struggle may keep going for a little while. So now this leads me to the second factor on why these new millionaires aren't feeling so wealthy, and that's because they're asset rich but cash poor. In my opinion, this is probably one of the biggest reasons why most new millionaires aren't feeling wealthy. It's that their assets have gone up in value significantly. However, they're not getting the equivalent cash flow from these assets. Majority of these new millionaires are due to the fact that they purchased their primary home right before the real estate boom in Canada. So majority of their net worth is actually being driven up by their primary home and not other investments. One prime example is Martin Elderwig, who spoke to Globe and Mail on becoming a new millionaire. Martin has openly said that they don't feel like a millionaire. Martin and his spouse bring in $7,500 a month in retirement income. And Martin has confirmed that their primary home makes up nearly 40% of their total asset. So for Martin, if his primary home didn't go up in value significantly, he would not be considered a millionaire today. Now, if you dive deeper into the prices of real estate in Canada, and let's say we focus on the Greater Toronto Area, if you look at the data over a 10-year span, you see that in 2014, the average price of a home is $600,000. And now let's fast forward 10 years. So in 2024, the average price of a home increases to $1.3 million. That's more than double in just 10 years. So if you had only purchased one property in 2014, the chances of you being a millionaire in 2024 and 2025 are significantly high. So if you are someone who's become a millionaire because your primary home has gone up in value, unless you're renting a portion of your house out, such as your basement, or planning to sell at home, that extra increase in value of your home is not really helping you in your every day-to-day life. Actually, it's probably the opposite. Now you're probably paying a lot more for property tax, utilities, and maintenance, as these have gone up significantly in the past 10 years. So as home prices have skyrocketed in the past several years, wages have not kept up, costs have significantly increased. So it really does make sense why these new millionaires aren't feeling wealthy. Now, this also leads me to the third factor why these new millionaires are not feeling so wealthy, and it's that there's lifestyle creep and social comparison. As individuals tend to get wealthier, there is this tendency to increase personal spending. And this just could be to keep up with your neighbor's lifestyle, or you're trying to flex an even better lifestyle than your neighbor. You'll see individuals spending money on buying newer and nicer cars, more vacations, and just going out more than before. Also, social media pushes other people to keep up with individuals that look wealthy online, as you'll see younger individuals than you on social media showing off how successful they are. But the truth is that social media is not all true, and you should not be comparing your life to others. At the end of the day, there'll always be a bigger and better home than the one you're living in right now. And every year there's a newer and better model of a car that comes out. But you need to learn to be content with your life and stay within your means. Life is not a race that you're competing against others. Rather, it's about focusing on yourself and becoming the best version that you can be. Regardless of your neighbor or that young kid that you saw online is doing, our goal at the end of the day is to spend less money than we bring in to make sure that we don't live paycheck to paycheck. Or even worse, taking on debt to make ends meet. Now, this leads me to the fourth factor why new millionaires are struggling to feel wealthy, and that is that Canadians in general have a higher level of debt and financial stress. Equifax reports that the total consumer debt in Canada has reached $2.56 trillion at the end of 2024, a 4.6% increase from 2023. Non-bank auto loans drove much of this increase, rising 11.7% year over year, while the average non-mortgage debt per consumer reached $21,931, exceeding pre-pandemic levels. More and more individuals are racking up debt because they want to go buy that brand new car, or they're buying things that they don't need on their credit card. And at the end of the month, most individuals don't have enough money to pay this credit card off in full. And you need to be careful with that because credit card interest will literally destroy you, as they can charge anywhere from 20 to 26%. And what I also found, which I think is downright scary, that is 11,000 mortgages in Ontario reported a missed payment in the fourth quarter of 2024. That's nearly 3 times the number seen in 2022. What this indicates to me in general is that a lot of individuals are actually house poor. And if you don't know what being house poor is, it's basically when you spend a large portion of your income on your mortgage and housing expenses and have very little income left to spend on other expenses. So if you want to avoid this financial disaster, there are 2 things that you can do to make sure that you can come up on top and get out of this never-ending cycle of debt. First, what you want to do is make a plan on how you're going to pay off debt from the highest interest rate down to the lowest. So for most, this will probably be your credit card debt. To ensure that you're able to catch up with your credit card debt, you may have to make a lot of sacrifices. This could mean that you are not going to eat out as much anymore, avoid planning any vacations, and putting off buying that brand new iPhone that you really wanted. And I know that this may not sound like a lot of fun, but our goal is to take control of our life and not have debt control you. The second thing that I focus on is that your housing expense does not exceed 30 to 35% of your overall gross income. So if you make $100,000, you don't want to spend more than $30,000 to $35,000 on your housing expense. So if you only pay rent, make sure that your rent doesn't exceed the $35,000 mark. And if you own a home, that means that your mortgage, property tax, and utilities should not exceed this 35% threshold. And if you're already living in a property where you exceed this 35% threshold, maybe start looking at a smaller property so that at the end of the day, it'll give you some breathing room. If you manage to follow these 2 steps, I can guarantee you that you will feel a lot less stressed at the end of the month, and it will eventually get you out from living paycheck to paycheck. And now this leads me to the last factor that's impacting new millionaires, and I think almost everyone in Canada right now, and that is the fear of the future. I personally think that this fear is more than valid among Canadians. With the recent rise in costs and this mass level anxiety, people are worried, what will Canada look like in 10, 20, or 30 years from now? Every day, we're seeing something happen with our largest trading partner, the US.
The old relationship we had with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperations, is over.
President Trump announcing tariffs on imports from Canada of 35%. Something must have made him mad. I don't know what the latest is. Maybe Megan knows.
With such level of uncertainty with our largest trading partner, this would impact a lot of industries where they could potentially lose a lot of their sales, thus meaning that a lot of Canadians would be out of a job. And already there's a lot of worry that Canada is headed towards a recession. So in the end, that means more job losses and way more anxiety for Canadians. And on top of that, if that wasn't bad enough, what we're finding is that most Canadians don't even have enough money to retire comfortably. According to Fidelity's Canada's 2025 retirement report, pre-retirees believe they'll need about over $1 million to retire comfortably, a figure that does not include home equity. That's more than double what Canadians thought they needed in 2005. If individuals that are near retirement are worried that they need over $1 million to retire comfortably, this makes sense as the average Canadian household has saved for retirement in total is $514,800. This is well below the $1 million mark that most Canadians believe that they need. If you're one of those individuals that's going to be retiring in the next couple of years and you don't think you have enough money saved to retire comfortably, what I would do is focus on paying down most of your debt. As you're able to pay off most of your debt, this will significantly reduce your level of stress and anxiety because you don't have to worry about missing a crucial payment. Also, take on an aggressive approach in cutting spending in areas that you don't really need to spend money. This could be that gym membership that you've been paying every single month for the past few years, but you barely even go to the gym. Or that cell phone plan that you've been overpaying for a very long time. It may be time to shop around to find a better and cheaper deal. And look at all the subscriptions that you've been paying for every single month. If you're not using the subscriptions more than once a week, I would probably just get rid of them. And in the end, you probably won't even notice a difference in your lifestyle. By paying off majority of your debt and reducing expenses, this will make a big difference in your day-to-day life. But if you're someone in your 20s, 30s, or 40s, what I would recommend is that you start investing as soon as possible to better the chance of you retiring much wealthier. The earlier you start to invest, the more the compound interest works for you. This will help to ensure that you're able to achieve the lifestyle that you've always wanted. So overall, if you're planning to become a millionaire, make sure that your majority of your net worth is coming from your investments and not your primary home, as your primary home will probably not help you with increasing your cash flow on a day-to-day basis. So for most individuals, investments such as stocks and bonds are going to be the best choice to live a comfortable life that you've always wanted. I really do hope this video helped you to understand what these new millionaires in Canada are facing today. If you did enjoy this video, please stay tuned for future videos. And until next time, remember to keep investing.